Hello, fifth grade. Good afternoon. All right, so today we're going to talk about, we're going to start delving into chapter 6, which is about the early English colonies. Now, there are three main early English colonies: Roanoke, Jamestown, and Plymouth. Roanoke, we're going to find out some information about Roanoke. We're going to read a lot about Jamestown from Blood on the River. Now, even though this is historical fiction, it is based off of the logs from Captain John Smith and the other gentlemen who were part of the colony establishment. So what's in here is, kind of fiction, but based on a lot of truth. And so we're going to talk about Jamestown as well. And then we're going to talk about Plymouth and the Puritans and the groups that come to England and their reasons why, come to the New World from England and the reasons why they all come. Each one is, obviously we know the main thing in history is the dollar bill, right? England wants money. They want prestige. They want to spread out their colony. They need the natural resources in the Americas in order to fuel their industrialism in their countries, in Scotland, Wales, and in the United Kingdom. So we know that's the main reason why they established their colonies, but the English colonies become very successful, minus Roanoke. So today we're going to read about Roanoke and kind of just get some background about it and why it's important. If you remember, most of us have already started Blood on the River, and we know that the main reason the Jamestown colony had their mission was to find out what happened to them. So there's always this mystery of what goes on. So we're going to go through the reading. We're going to go through and complete our packet. You're also going to notice that your chapter 6 packet, the vocab isn't there. Mr. Meany, what did you do to us? Guess what? We're going to start defining the words while we're reading. So as we read the text, we're going to find the words that we're looking for, and we're going to write the definitions in. So before we start completing the packet, I'm going to go through the reading. Any key words that we're going to find, we're going to fill them out as we go along, and then we'll complete the pages for the lesson for today. Today we're going to do Roanoke, and I also have a fun little video to talk about Roanoke and its theories. But first, let's read. We'll do the work and end with a little video. All right. So the early English settlements. I know I usually don't read the introduction, but this one's actually really nice. So what challenges faced the first English colonies? European explorers who discovered new regions of the Americas paved the way for larger groups to follow. These groups left Europe for all kinds of reasons, but they all shared the same goal of finding a better life. Each group made the difficult voyage across the Atlantic Ocean. Then they built small communities called settlements. That's a vocab word. The first three English settlements were Roanoke, Jamestown, and Plymouth. The settlers at these places faced many challenges. Roanoke is an island off the coast of North Carolina, was the first English settlement. No one knows what happened to the settlers. Few signs of them remained when ships from England came to find them later. That is why today Roanoke is called the Lost Colony. Shortly after the attempt to settle on Roanoke, 105 Englishmen arrived in present-day Virginia, hoping to find gold and other riches. They became a settlement called Jamestown in 1607. Despite many hardships, Jamestown became the first successful English colony in North America. A few years later, a group of 102 English people arrived in present-day New England. They built a settlement called Plymouth in what is now the state of Massachusetts. Most of the people had left England to seek religious freedom. They became known as the Pilgrims. Pilgrims are people who go on a religious journey. As you learn about these communities, think about the hardships faced by these groups of English settlers. Why did some settlements survive while others did not? Here's a great picture of the Pilgrims who were seeking and arrived at Plymouth. All right, and here's all our vocabulary words. They're the same ones on our sheet. So just keep in mind of the words that come up in our reading today about Roanoke. All right, the lost settlement of Roanoke. In the 1500s, Spain was a powerful nation. Its ships sailed to the Spanish colonies in the Americas and brought riches back to Spain. Sir Walter Raleigh, a sea captain and soldier, was a friend of Queen Elizabeth I. He believed that England could be more powerful if it had American colonies of its own. In 1584, he sent two ships to explore the coast of North America. The ships landed on an island near present-day North Carolina. The sailors named the island Roanoke for the American Indians who lived there. The explorers soon returned to England and told Raleigh that the island had fish, animals, fruits, vegetables, and friendly people. It would be an ideal place to create a new community or a settlement. All right, settlement means create a new community. The next year, Raleigh sent some men to start a colony. Unfortunately, few of the settlers were farmers, and supplies quickly ran short. When fighting broke out between the English and the Roanokes, the settlers gave up and went home. In 1587, Raleigh sent over 150 new settlers, consisting of farmers and skilled workers, to Roanoke. Later that year, Captain John White went back to England for supplies. Because England was fighting a war with Spain, White's ships were not allowed to return to the colony. 3 years later, White finally returned to Roanoke, but there were no signs of the settlers. Everything, including their houses, was gone. The only clue White discovered was the word Croatan carved into the gatepost of a ruined fort. He thought the settlers might have moved to the island of Croatan or joined an American Indian group with that name. Before he could find out, however, the weather turned bad and he could not search the area. Despite many efforts to solve the mystery, no one has discovered what has happened to the colony. Dun dun dun! Dun dun dun! What happened? The great mystery of American history. All right, so let's go through our packet and define our words. I'm going to use the glossary that goes with this. Feel free to use dictionary to find the words that were in our text. We have settlement and Roanoke as our main vocab words in this section. Okay, so we have our packet. Make sure you put your name, date. All right, so our first two vocab words from this first reading are Roanoke, which is an island off the coast of North Carolina that became the first English settlement. If anyone knows North Carolina, the capital of North Carolina is Raleigh, North Carolina, named after Sir Walter Raleigh. So there's a connection there. Settlement is a small community created by settlers in a new territory. So be sure to pause it here, write down your vocabulary definitions before we move on to the next page. All right, so Roanoke, our first question. Why did people move to Roanoke? So it said here, Sir Walter Raleigh, a sea captain and soldier, was a friend of Queen Elizabeth I. He believed that England could be more powerful if it had a colony of its own in North America. So the main reason people moved to Roanoke was so England could be more powerful and it could have a colony of its own in America. Next, it said, what hardship did the settlers face? So if we scroll through, so unfortunately, it's always a nice key word that something's not good. A few of the settlers were farmers and supplies quickly ran short. And they had conflicts and fighting with the English and the native Roanokes. So they had to give up and went home. So that is a hardship that was faced. And another hardship would be that because England was fighting a war with Spain, the supply ships were so the supply ships were not allowed to return to the colony. So I think those three pieces right there would be our hardships for the Roanoke colony. So we have few settlers were farmers and supplies ran out. Supply ships from England never returned and conflicts with the natives. How did American Indians in the area treat these first settlers? All right, so we kind of actually answered that right here. And it said, fighting broke out between the English and the Roanokes. The settlers never came back. We could mention that this is just theory, so we actually don't want to mention this because that's not really, we don't really know for fact what it is, but this piece is fact because they went home and then came back. What do you think happened to the people who settled there? Now, this is where we can put our theories of what happened. So we can say people from Roanoke moved with other natives nearby, which was one part that they mentioned here. They were attacked and died, or they starved, got sick, and died off. All possible theories. Now, these next two questions are what do you think questions? So there really is no right or correct answer. So feel free to put your own. I will put my response of what I think makes a good answer, but you have your own brain, so you do not need to copy Mr. Armini brain. All right, why do you think the settlement failed? So the text gives us some clues as to why it failed, right? They didn't have enough supplies. They weren't farmers. There were no skilled workers. And the natives felt their land was getting taken. So those are all possible answers for there. And what do you think could have been done to make the settlement more successful? Well, the reason it failed, you'd probably want to put the opposite of answers, correct? So having people who know how to hunt or gather food, making sure people are trained to know how to farm, and find maybe more peaceful ways to communicate with the natives. So, probably the opposite of why it failed would be your reasons of how to make it successful. All right, so again, these are both open-ended, right? Feel free to put what you think fits. These are just my suggestions based on the text. All right, so the next section, it says use the sensory figure below and finish the statements to describe something the figure might have seen, heard, touched, eaten, or felt, emotions. Include the words in the word bank and use only each word once. So we have sailor, Sir Walter Raleigh, John White, which was Captain John White, food, Croatan. So we need to figure out how we can plug in all these words into this figure, this colonial figure, and see how we can make it fit into the story. So what can you listen to? Well, Sir Walter Raleigh sent explorers and gave orders, so we can listen to Sir Walter Raleigh give orders or give orders to explore the coast and create a settlement. With my hands, that one's a little bit tricky, but we do know that the word Croatan, and that's the word Croatan there, the only part it's mentioned in the reading is it was carved on a gatepost of a ruined fort. So, we can make it up and just say maybe I carved the word Croatan onto the post. What can we watch? I watched the sailors, right? There's the word sailor, anchor our ship near an unknown bay or land to help us explore. I ate food, right? That's an easy one. I ate food that ran out quickly, along with all the other supplies. I ate food that was stale and rotten, right? It's been on a ship for Lord knows how many weeks and months, and they still had to live off those supplies. They didn't really know how to gather food. I felt. Now, Captain John White, in the reading, it said, later that year, Captain John White went back to England for supplies, but because of the war, White's ships were not allowed to return. So maybe if you were on Roanoke, you would feel maybe betrayed or desperate for Captain John White to return to bring back supplies. So feel free to come up with your own. Those are the suggestions that I'm going to write in, and then I will come back through and show you the completed one. Now, these are just, again, my examples, but feel free to elaborate it or change it any way you see fit while still following the directions. And of course, because this is a Miss Armenia assignment, feel free to color in our colonial figure. Now, we don't really know what these settlers or figures look like, but we could go through the picture from the reading. And actually, it's not a very big picture. Let me find the better one. Here it is. Different colors there. So we could look at the pictures and kind of see how they look to figure out how we can dress our settler colonial figure. All right, next, we're going to see a quick little video explaining the Roanoke colony, again, just to review the concepts of this lost colony. Let's see if I make this bigger. There we go.
The story of Roanoke is really one of the first great mysteries in American history. This was England's first attempt to establish a permanent settlement in the New World. So a motivated group sets out in 1587 and establishes this permanent village on the island of Roanoke, just off the coast of Virginia. They're supposed to be resupplied every year, but the English, they get distracted because they're fighting this war with Spain. By the time the supply ships finally return, almost 3 years later, the colony has completely vanished. All they find are the bones of one man and this word Croatoan carved on a post left in the encampment. Well, this has turned into one of these mythical legends of American history. No one knows what this word means. No one knows what happened to these guys. And everyone has had a hypothesis. Now, some believe they were captured by hostile Spanish coming up from the south. Some say that they assimilated into the native population. Some say that, with no supply efforts, these guys built this boat and headed off back to England, but were lost at sea. But of course, there's no proof of any of this. Now, what seems more likelier is that when this supply ship returned, all they found were corpses. And now the financiers have a problem. They need the colonists to make these colonies profitable. But who's going to go to America if it means certain death? So instead of reporting what they find, they cover it up. They let the rumors swirl around, and they obscure what really happened. As a result, settlers will see America as worth the risk. And lo and behold, that's exactly what happened, as England was able to finance a second colonization effort in 1607 with the founding of Jamestown.
All right, so we get the idea of what the purpose of Roanoke and the meaning behind it and the history and the hypothesis of it. In our next lessons, we'll talk about Jamestown and Plymouth. Have a good day, 5th grade.